Stay connected to the world around you. KPBS brings you trusted news, compelling stories, and in-depth reporting every day. Wherever life takes you, KPBS is here, on the radio, online, and on the go. Discover more at kpbs.org.
Welcome back to Midday Edition. I'm Andrew Bracken, in for Jade Hindman. Since current protests have taken on a decidedly more theatrical, even humorous tone, our Midday Movies critics wanted to explore the notion of tactical frivolity as a tool. We see it demonstrated in the Portland protesters wearing inflatable costumes, and we will look into how tactical frivolity is played out in films. Joining us once again are KPBS cinema junkie Beth Accomando and Moviewallas podcaster Yazdi Pithaval. Welcome back to Midday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to have you back. So, Beth, let's break it down. Start by defining tactical frivolity.
Sure. So I'm someone who really does love rebellion and pop culture and humor. And when all that mixes together, like with the Portland Frog, this guy who's in an inflatable costume standing up against ICE agents, it takes on this level of absurdity and performance that really sort of intrigued me and inspired me. I grew up in the 60s, so I saw a lot of very weird protests and some very successful ones. There's a thing called the Clandestine Insurgent Rebel Clown Army that came out in the 2000s. And I discovered this website called Beautiful Trouble that has this toolbox where you can look for theories, principles, practices of things that will help you in a protest and maybe get you more attention by doing something unconventional. And one of those tools is what's called tactical frivolity, which is epitomized by the Portland Frog. And I spoke to L.M. Bogad, who wrote a book called Tactical Performance, Theory and Practice of Serious Play. And here are some of the things he said about tactical frivolity.
It's about a refutation of the authorities' version of events, refuting their story in a playful way and telling our story in a playful way, while being just disarmingly charming, because how mad can you be at a frog in Portland? So tactical frivolity is a lot of things. It's been going on a long time, and it is the use of a thoughtful version of being ridiculous. And I refer to this as radical ridicule. It makes people who are angry maybe a little less angry, or at least less able to act violently on that anger. I like to say it's politically more expensive to club a clown than to club a regular person. So it is a thing that raises the cost of repression, and it tells your story in an inviting and playful way. I like to think of it as serious play, because you're taking the problem seriously enough to work harder and be funny. So I like to think of tactical frivolity as an element of charismatic action that attracts more people.
Beth, let's bring it back to film. You want to start off with a film that's gotten quite a bit of attention in the last few years, even though it came out decades ago at this point, and that's Mike Judge's Idiocracy. Here's the setup.
As the 21st century began, human evolution was at a turning point. Natural selection, the process by which the strongest, the smartest, the fastest reproduced in greater numbers than the rest, a process which had once favored the noblest traits of man, now began to favor different traits. Most science fiction of the day predicted a future that was more civilized and more intelligent. But as time went on, things seemed to be heading in the opposite direction, a dumbing down. How did this happen? Evolution does not necessarily reward intelligence. With no natural predators to thin the herd, it began to simply reward those who reproduced the most and left the intelligent to become an endangered species.
So that's the intro there of Idiocracy, kind of framed as a documentary there. But Beth, tell us how that's an example of cinematic tactical frivolity.
Sure. So people joke about this having been a comedy and now going like, oh no, it's really a documentary. It was totally prescient. So this is Mike Judge, who people may not remember, but he created Beavis and Butthead as well as Office Space. So he knows how to use humor to push buttons, and he knows how to make it ridiculous and absurd, but also still kind of touching on the things we all feel we know about the work environment or young people, whatever it is. He has this nice blend of that absurdity and realistic edge. And one of the keys to tactical frivolity is to also be able to make fun of yourself. So in Idiocracy, those yuppies, the yuppie couple who wants to be very smart and plan for their family, he makes fun of them as much as he makes fun of kind of the redneck family that's reproducing like rabbits. So that ability to make fun of both sides, I think, is key to this also. And the other key is just ridiculous extremes. So this takes the notion of like the world has become so stupid that this dumb guy from the present day is the most intelligent person. These people do not even know you have to water crops to make them grow.
They use Gatorade, right?
Yeah, and they have President Camacho, who's Terry Crews, who is hilarious. But, you know, there's a lot of things buried in this also that feel like, oh, my God, you were making fun of stuff that now feels like it's part of our life today. And so I think that's part of the key to why this is tactical frivolity is he does have sort of a political message he wants to make, but he is coming at it from this roundabout, ridiculous manner where if you don't get the message, that's fine. But he is presenting this picture of absolute absurdity and saying, like, is this where we're heading?
And you're right. It does kind of touch upon this reality. I'm actually rewatching Silicon Valley, which was Mike Judge's sort of like skewering of California's tech scene, right? And a lot of it's truer than it seems like it should be. But Yazdi, you know, what are your thoughts about Idiocracy?
Yeah, so like you, Andrew, I watched it recently as well. And what I like about the movie is it's a satire. There's a lot of jokes about how we might be 100 years from now. The original title of the movie, by the way, was supposed to be 3001 for the year in which the movie transpires. But I think it's very serious about it the entire time. Like, there isn't much of a wink. Like, all of that stuff is played very seriously. And I think that's why it kind of holds up very well. It does seem pretty prescient in terms of predicting our current world where education or science is not held to a high standard. And the movie is also very resolutely anti-intellectual, right? So in that future world, being intelligent is frowned upon. In fact, 20th Century Fox, which released Idiocracy, they did not want to do a very wide release for the movie precisely because of its anti-commercial, anti-consumerism messages. But I think the film's cachet has grown over the years. And,
immensely, it seems like. Yeah, right?
And you can especially tell from the last act of the movie where it's particularly contemptuous of dumbing down at the government level.
So using humor, Beth, is, you know, to comment on politics, it's not new. One of your favorite sources of this goes all the way back to the Marx Brothers.
Yes, I love the Marx Brothers. And like Monty Python, they're all about anarchy. There is nothing sacred in the world of Monty Python or the Marx Brothers. So the Marx Brothers made fun of anything that remotely touched upon authority. And that's where I think that notion of their frivolity comes in, because there is nothing sacred. And so they were at their peak in the 1930s. Groucho was an incredibly verbal and hilarious comedian. And so here he plays Rufus T. Firefly in Duck Soup, and he is happy to sing about the corruption in his administration.
The last man nearly ruined this place. He didn't know what to do with it. If you think this country's bad off now, just wait till I get through with it. The country's taxes must be fixed, and I know what to do with it. If you think you're paying too much now, just wait till I get through with it. I will not stand for anything that's crooked or unfair. I'm strictly on the up and up, so everyone beware. If anyone's caught taking graft and I don't get my share, we stand them up against the wall and pop goes the weasel.
So the target of a lot of their humor in this film is countries going to war over ridiculous reasons. And there's a long battle scene at the end in which Groucho, in every scene, has a different uniform. So he's Confederate, he's Union, he's British, it doesn't matter. He gets accused of shooting his own men at one point and then bribes the guy to keep it quiet. So he is making absolute fun of all this structure we have, you know, this thing that tells us, you know, this is the right side or this is the wrong side or you're fighting for your country. I mean, all of that comes under attack
during a time of a lot of nationalism and obviously leading to World War II, right?
Yeah, because this was in the early 30s. So, yeah, it's a fabulous film. It holds up 100%, like their humor. I strongly believe that when you make fun of authority, your humor will never go out
There's
of
a
style.
timelessness to
Yeah,
it, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And Yazdi, you have another classic on your list, this one from Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, so The Great Dictator, I think, is simply one of the best movies ever made. Charlie Chaplin plays a double role in the movie. He's a poor Jewish barber who is drafted off to war and who suffers amnesia as a soldier. And the other role is this megalomaniac dictator Henkel of the fictitious country Tomania. And so Chaplin could have made a movie which was very serious about his growing concern about the approach of the Second World War, but his taking all of it in a humorous vein makes all the difference.
Brunettes are troublemakers. They're worse than the Jews.
Then wipe them out.
Too small. Not so fast. We get rid of the Jews first, then concentrate on the brunettes.
We shall never have peace until we have a pure Aryan race. How wonderful. Tomania, a nation of blue-eyed blondes.
Why not a blonde Europe, a blonde Asia, a blonde America?
A blonde world.
And a brunette dictator.
Dictator of the world.
Why not? Art Caesar, art nullus. The world is effete, worn out, afraid. No nation would dare to oppose you.
Dictator of the world.
It's your destiny. We'll kill us. We'll start with the invasion of Austerlitz. After that, we won't have to fight, we can bluff. Nation after nation will capitulate. Within 2 years, the world will be under your thumb.
Leave me. I want to be alone.
And since you can't see this in the clip you're about to hear, let me just tell you, Chaplin is kind of a little child almost as Henkel, as he's playing with this globe and floating it up in the air and kind of almost being wizardly about it. And you can see that he's comical even as he's literally thinking of the world eventually becoming his own possession.
Out Caesar, out Nolus, Emperor of the world.
So obviously, Henkel here stands in for Hitler. But in addition to the frivolity that was at display in most of the movie, there's also very dark material here, and it's pretty serious for a movie made in the 1940s. In the movie, Henkel orders a purge of all the Jews in the country that he oversees after a prominent Jewish banker refuses to fund his invasions. And amidst all the tumult that follows, the poor barber gets mistaken for the fascist Henkel. And he's asked to take on the leadership of the country. And the poor barber is, of course, initially flummoxed, but he goes on to make an impassioned speech, and that's how the movie plays out at the end, and it's a speech for the ages. We'll listen to a clip.
Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!
So kind of piece of real sincerity there, after that kind of ludicrous, as you mentioned, the scene with the globe and everything that's so famous.
Absolutely.
In that great film.
He made the movie in 1940 before the approach of the Second World War. And I didn't even know that when I first watched the movie because I thought this was satire done after the end of the Second World War. But this was his commentary on what he saw approaching. And he famously said that had he known how the Second World War actually played out, he would have never made this movie because what actually happened was so much worse than what was depicted in the film.
Beth, these types of movies aren't just relegated to the era of World War II and earlier in the century. You have a more recent film that uses a dictator as a central character. Tell us about that.
Yes, so this is a film called The Dictator, and it stars Sacha Baron Cohen. Now, he lives his life as kind of tactical frivolity. He impersonates or he creates characters for himself that he goes out into the world as and never makes a distinction that he's playing a role. You can even find a clip of him as his hip-hop journalist, Ali G, interviewing Trump and Trump getting kind of frustrated with him and not even realizing the whole thing is this con, this whole setup. So in 2012, he collaborated with Larry Charles on The Dictator. And this is a speech where he's playing a sort of generic Middle East dictator, and he wants to keep his country safe from democracy. And so this is a kind of speech where you may feel like you want to both laugh and cry.
Why are you guys so anti-dictators? Imagine if America was a dictatorship. You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Your media would appear free, but would secretly be controlled by one person and his family. You could wiretap phones. You could torture foreign prisoners. You could have rigged elections. You could lie about why you go to war. You could fill your prisons with one particular racial group, and no one would complain. You could use the media to scare the people into supporting policies that are against their interests. I know this is hard for you Americans to imagine, but please try.
Yeah, really.
That hurts.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot there. Yazdi, you love a comedy that's not overtly political, but makes fun of a real dictator in Hitler.
Yeah, we just talked about The Great Dictator and Charlie Chaplin's attempt at tactical frivolity there. But Mel Brooks did his own version in The Original Producers, which came out in 1967. It was Brooks's first film as a movie director. He also wrote the script for it. And it's about a theater producer who finds a $2,000 discrepancy in his accounts for the last play he did. And he forces an unwilling accountant to devise a scheme where he plans to mount a play so awful that it is assured to be a flop. And so he can write off that discrepancy. So he writes a play that is a love letter to Hitler, and it's titled Springtime for Hitler. And let's listen to a clip from Springtime for Hitler.
Springtime for Hitler and Germany. Winter for Poland and France. Springtime for Hitler and Germany. Come on, Germans, go into your dance. I was born in Dusseldorf, and that is why they call me Rolf.
Don't be stupid, be a smarty. Come and join the Nazi party.
So Mel Brooks' satire, of course, is on point because it comes to pass in the film that the audience actually, instead of being appalled and horrified, which they are initially, they come to recognize the play to be trenchant humor and a great satire, and the whole play becomes a huge hit. But I truly believe that nothing serious that Mel Brooks could have written could have been more effective at condemning Hitler than, his version of The Producers.
He got a lot of flack for creating that, being criticized for making fun of Jews and the Holocaust. And his defense was, I'm not making fun of any of the victims, and I'm not making fun or, questioning anything about the Holocaust. But what I am doing is I'm bringing down this dictator and making him small through comedy. And, he felt like that was a very valid way to make a critique of somebody who was, so horrific that you kind of have to take this backdoor comic approach to really shrink him or bring him down to size or ridicule him.
Mm-hmm. Beth, one of your favorite political comedies is The Death of Stalin. Tell us about this, because this is more recent. Obviously, The Death of Stalin happened decades and decades ago. But tell us why, it just stands out to you.
So I love Armando Iannucci. He's a brilliant satirist. He displayed this in The Thick of It, which was a British show that made fun of British politics. And then he made fun of American politics with Veep. During the first presidency of Donald Trump, he quit Veep, basically shut it down. I had a chance to interview him, and he said comedy writers could not compete with the absurdity of the real world. And he felt like he had no place writing this show about contemporary politics. And that, I think, led him to do Death of Stalin. So you're going back in history. You're looking to the moment when Stalin did die. He casts a bunch of American, British actors. He makes no pretense at having fake Russian accents. He just throws them out there in this absolutely savagely, expertly written comedy. So you're just sucked into the shenanigans that are going on.
And they're all just stumbling over each other to see who can take control, right?
So it's just insane. It's the chaos that comes when this authoritarian figure dies and nobody is ready for who's next? And there are hilarious moments with people changing sides. You know, they go like, he's from the left. No, he was from the right. He was from the right. And like they just slide into opinions with no hesitation. And there's this one scene, this one line that, again, it's this moment of brutally funny and utterly chilling and absolutely sticks with me. So here's this one of my favorite dark lines from this film.
Shoot her before him, but make sure he sees it. Or in this one, kill him, take him to his church, dump him in the pulpit. And I'll leave the rest up to you.
So the pettiness of this cruelty is both absurdly funny and absolutely horrific. And I love the way throughout this movie he walks this line between extreme absurdity and absolutely trenchant, like satiric points that he's making. So I urge you, if you have not seen this film, go see it. It's blisteringly funny. It's fast-paced, and there's just so many layers to the comedy. And I think by casting all these English-speaking actors, you know, he was making a commentary on current politics, but felt unable to use current politics as, you know, the foundation. So he had to step back in history to go like, all right, I'm going to go look at this. You guys draw your own conclusions, but take note.
No, I'm envious of anybody who has not seen The Death of Stalin because you're in for such a treat. That film is just firing on all cylinders. It's excellent.
So good.
Yeah.
Yazdi, you're going to take us out with, you know, one pretty extreme example of ridiculousness and frivolity, and that's South Park.
Listen, who does not love South Park? South Park's style has always been that it gets to the dark themes. It has a lot of profanity, but it kind of has equal contempt for everyone. It's ostensibly about 4 8-year-old friends in the town of South Park in Colorado, but there's a whole community it builds around itself. And over 28 seasons since it started in 1997, the show has been like really the bellwether for satire in the country. I mean, you know, obviously they had the South Park movie, which is a standalone piece of Marvel. But what I've really liked to see about South Park is that it initially started out trying to shock people and being more scatological in its humor. But with time, it's progressed into becoming more about, you know, social satire and political satire. So it's really matured. And as I mentioned before, no one is safe. It's, you know, equal level of satire for everyone. And perhaps the most absurd was when the people living in South Park decide to blame Canada for what's wrong with the country. And here's a clip.
But what is the source? Oh, that's easy. Times have changed. Our kids are getting worse. They won't obey their parents. They just want to fart and curse. Should we blame the government or blame society?
Or should we blame the images on TV?
No, blame Canada. Blame Canada. For their beady little eyes and flapping heads are full of lies. Blame Canada. Blame Canada. We need to form a full assault.
Well, that sounds like a great and frivolous way to end our discussion of tactical frivolity. I want to thank our critics, KPBS cinema junkie Beth Accomando and Moviewallas podcaster Yazdi Pithaval.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It seems that everything's gone wrong since Canada came along. Blame Canada. Blame Canada.
They're not even a real country anyway.
From El Centro to everywhere, we're Voices del Valle.
Voices del Valle?
Voices del Valle is a team-produced podcast about coming of age in California's Imperial Valley.
I love Voices del Valle.
On the next episode of Voices del Valle, we will talk with teens about their cheer and soccer championship seasons. I've got to listen to that. Voices del Valle, fresh voices, bold stories made in the valley.
Voices del Valle. Find us on KPBS or wherever you get your podcasts.